Hi, this is Matthew again. Today I want to just quickly read out a poem and talk about it a little bit. Um, this is a poem from, it's up on Patreon, which is the sponsorship site that I use. And it's been there for about a year. And you can read it up there. Um, the the poem is it's called Incipiens, and let me just grab it. And it was written on 12 January 2014, and it was published on Patreon um, on 30 January 2014. So it was part of a small group of poems that I wrote at the beginning of last year, and that I published quickly on Patreon rather than sending to a magazine. The other one that I read out recently, called Giants, I read out just earlier this week in a hangout, in a solo hangout. That was written about the same time. So anyway, this is called Incipiens, and it's a sonnet. The colors of dawn in the countryside are a delight. Sky lemon, tree ochre, miasma pink across the hills, those brides of night with its innumerable stars. Then, like a fantastic trumpet, the sun disarticulates our nocturnal phase, so the parakeets and the shadows run, brushing the bush on the blare of its rays. But how different the time after morning, when the sun quells any urge to elope, and kangaroos silent as mannequins lie hidden in the expectant landscape. Just so might a fresh sensation flutter through the new-waked mind and seed an idea. Yeah, it's a very visual poem. I like the collection of colors at the beginning of this poem. It's funny because I had a poem published last year, and that poem was called "On the Way to New England." And "On the Way to New England," which I'll read out later in a solo hangout. "On the Way to New England" was published in Southerly magazine. Southerly magazine is published by the University of Sydney, and I was very happy to have that published. But the reason why I mention "On the Way to New England" is because Incipiens is also inspired by a trip through New England. "On the Way to New England" was written, I think, it was written in 2010. Let me just check that. It was written in 2010, in April, in November 2010, after I had been up to New England, and which is on the tablelands between Brisbane and Sydney, the high country. And Incipiens also was written after a trip to New England, which I took with my daughter when she was here in winter of 2013. We drove to Sydney one time. So both of those poems owe their beginning, their incipient moment to New England. So anyway, Incipiens has got it's got all these colors at the beginning. So the lemon and the ochre and the pink. I remember this time the reason why it's got all these colors in the poem is because my daughter and I were driving in the dawn time out of the city of Armidale, the town of Armidale, which is quite a big town. And as we were driving out of town, the sun came up, and at first it just sort of made everything become light colored, made everything become visible before it appeared itself on the horizon. And then suddenly, like I say in the poem, like a fantastic trumpet, the sun appeared on the horizon, and the light just shot out of the sun in a great explosion of vibrancy. And you do see parakeets running away from cars when you're driving in the countryside. The parakeets screech and fly very quickly. They make these sounds with their beaks, these very bright sounds, and they're a very noticeable feature of the landscape. So the first quatrain sets the scene. It talks about the colors and the hills, and which it compares to brides of night. And then the second quatrain, the sun rises. The third quatrain is the dead, sort of hot midday time, where the mannequins, the kangaroos-like mannequins, lie hidden in the landscape. And the final two lines just use the apparent appearance of the sun as a metaphor for the way that ideas can appear in your mind just out of nowhere, and suddenly make everything real and everything visible. And so it's a contemplation of how ideas can appear out of nowhere. Anyway, I like this poem. Incipiens is quite pretty. It's hard to explain. I just really like the lemon and the ochre and the pink, and I really like the way the second quatrain works too, with this sort of explosion of light, and the third quatrain is sort of like it's got a blanket over it. It's sort of quiet and silent, and then the final two lines, the couplet at the end, which sort of ties everything up. It's an interesting little poem, and I'm quite happy with it. It was a time, at the beginning of the year when I was doing quite a lot of writing, and beginning of last year, I was doing quite a lot of writing, and so it was a quite productive time for me. But yeah, Incipiens has it's got a special place in my heart. I really enjoy the way the words work, and I don't know. It really makes me happy. This poem. It's a very happy making poem for me. It's all about color and light and feelings and it's just it's a simple poem, but it does have an argument as well. So it sort of fulfills that characteristic of uh, the sonnet, which is to sort of argue a point. So you've got 1, 2, and then 3. The third quatrain is supposed to change and then tie it together at the end with the final couplet. So it does have the sort of characteristic structure of a sonnet. And so anyway, I hope you enjoy that, and I'll come back later. I've got to go to Sydney for a few days, but I'll hopefully be able to publish another solo hangout talking about another poem later on, before I move to Sydney permanently, which will be in a few weeks. So stay well and be good, and I'll talk to you later.